The battlefield was quiet now, but it was not peace. Smoke curled from broken machines. The ground was black with fire and ash. The sky above was filled with drifting wreckage, like bones of a dead giant floating in silence. Daniel, a human soldier, limped through the ruins. His armor was cracked, his arm bleeding, but he was still alive. The battle had ended hours ago, yet his ears still rang with the memory of explosions and screams. He searched for survivors, not sure if he hoped to find humans or enemies. He just knew he could not leave yet. Then he saw movement. At first, he thought it was another wounded soldier. But when he stepped closer, his breath caught. It was no ordinary soldier. It was her, the alien queen. Her body was trapped under a collapsed war machine, heavy steel crushing her legs. Her crown-like headpiece glowed faintly, cracked and dented. Her breathing was sharp, pained, but her glowing eyes still burned with pride. Even wounded, even broken, she looked dangerous. Daniel froze. Every human knew her face. The queen of the Kareth Empire, the ruler of one of humanity's greatest enemies. He should have drawn his weapon. He should have ended her life. One shot, and humanity would be safer. But he didn't. Instead, he lowered his weapon. Something inside him whispered louder than orders or hatred. She was alive. She was suffering. And no matter who she was still someone who needed help. He stepped forward. The queen's eyes widened as she saw him. Even trapped, even broken, she managed to raise her voice. "Human, what are you doing here?" Daniel crouched beside the wreckage. "Trying to get you out." Her expression twisted in fury. "You should kill me. That is what your kind wants, is it not?" Daniel met her gaze calmly. "Maybe, but not me." Her breath caught, her pride shaken by his words. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a pained cough. "Fool, if you free me, I will kill you." Daniel gritted his teeth as he tried to move the heavy metal. "Maybe, but I won't leave you to die like this." The queen fell silent. Her soldiers would have abandoned a wounded enemy. Her generals would have finished her with a smile. Yet this human, this fragile creature, was straining every muscle to save her. He pushed. The wreckage shifted slightly, but not enough. His arms trembled. His wounds screamed in pain. Still, he did not stop. "Why? Why are you doing this?" She whispered suddenly. Daniel didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the wreckage, sweat running down his face. "Because it's the right thing to do." Her eyes widened. She had lived her whole life in a world where power was law, where kindness was weakness, where enemies were only prey. She had never heard words like his. At last, with one final heave, Daniel shoved the wreckage aside. The weight crashed to the ground, leaving the queen free. Daniel collapsed onto the dirt, gasping for breath, his arms shaking. The queen sat up slowly. Her body was bruised, her legs bleeding, but she was alive. She looked at him in silence, her glowing eyes unreadable. She could kill him now. With one strike, she could end him. Yet she did not move. Daniel, still lying on the ground, gave a weak smile. "There, you're free." The queen's voice was low, almost too soft to hear. "You are either the bravest man I have ever seen, or the most foolish." Daniel closed his eyes, too tired to answer. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the queen leaned closer. Her voice dropped into a whisper, so quiet it seemed meant only for him. "Why are you so kind?" Daniel's eyes opened, confusion flickering across his face. But before he could reply, the queen slumped back against the dirt, her strength fading. She had fainted. Daniel stared at her in shock. The words echoed in his mind. "Why are you so kind?" This was the alien queen, the enemy of humanity, the conqueror of worlds. Yet in her moment of weakness, she had not ordered his death. She had asked a question, and Daniel had no answer. He sat there in the smoke in silence, watching her chest rise and fall, his mind racing. What had just happened? Why had he saved her? And why had she whispered those words? He didn't know. But one thing was certain. This was not the end of the battle. It was the beginning of something far greater, not the humans. Choice the battlefield grew colder as night settled across the ruins. Fires burned low, glowing red among the broken machines. Daniel sat against a shattered wall, his chest rising heavily. Beside him lay the alien queen, still unconscious, her breathing slow but steady. Every instinct told him to leave. She was the enemy. If other humans found out he had saved her, they would call him a traitor. They would ask why he did not kill her when he had the chance. But when Daniel looked at her, lying weak and wounded, he saw not a monster, but a life he had chosen to protect. He sighed, pulling out his small medical kit. His hands were trembling, tired, but he still cleaned the wounds on her legs. She stirred at the touch, but did not wake. "You should hate me," he muttered under his breath. "But I can't hate someone helpless." Hours passed. The distant sky rumbled with thunder, or perhaps more ships. Daniel stayed close, guarding her. His rifle was still within reach, but he didn't point it at her. Not anymore. Finally, the queen's eyes opened. They glowed faintly in the darkness as she turned her head toward him. "You," she whispered, her voice weak. "You stayed." Daniel nodded. "You were hurt. I couldn't leave you." Her eyes narrowed. "Do you understand what you've done? You saved the enemy. If your commanders find out, they will punish you." Daniel gave a tired smile. "Maybe, but at least I'll know I did the right thing." The queen stared at him for a long time, silent. She had ruled for decades, commanding armies with fear and fire. No one had ever dared to speak to her like this, not as a queen, not as a warrior, but as a person at last. She asked, "Why risk everything for me?" Daniel shrugged. "Because that's what humans do. We help, even when it makes no sense." Her lips tightened, as if she wanted to argue, but she had no strength. She turned her face away, whispering almost to herself, "Strange, so strange." Daniel reached into his pack, pulling out a ration bar. He held it toward her. "Eat, you need your strength." Her glowing eyes studied him suspiciously, as if expecting poison. But then, slowly, she reached out and took it. She bit into the dry food, grimacing at the taste, but she did not stop. Daniel smirked faintly. "Not as good as royal feasts, I guess." To his surprise, her lips curved into something small, almost like a smile. It faded quickly, but he had seen it. The queen leaned back against the wall. "You confuse me, human. I should despise you. I should kill you where you sit. Yet here I am, eating your food." Daniel leaned his head against the wall beside her. "Then maybe you should stop thinking about what you should do, and just think about what feels right." She said nothing, but her silence was not anger. It was thought. The night dragged on. Daniel dozed lightly, waking at every sound. Twice he thought enemy hunters were approaching, but the noise passed. He kept his rifle close, but his eyes kept drifting toward the queen. When dawn broke, light poured across the ruins. The queen stirred again, stronger now. She pushed herself to sit up, her wounds bound with Daniel's makeshift bandages. "You kept me alive," she said firmly, her voice regaining its strength. Daniel nodded. "I told you I would." She looked at him for a long time. Her glowing eyes softened, but only slightly. "Do you realize what this means? You carry my life now. My people will not understand. Your people will not forgive. Both sides would rather see me dead than see me helped by a human." Daniel tightened the strap on his rifle and stood slowly. "Then it stays between us." The queen raised an eyebrow. "You would hide it?" Yes, Daniel said. Not because I'm afraid of punishment, but because if they know, they'll use it as a weapon against both of us. I don't want that. The Queen tilted her head, studying him. She had met many humans before soldiers, who fought with rage, prisoners who begged for mercy, leaders who bargained for survival. But this soldier was different. Her voice dropped low again. You are not like the others. Daniel gave a small shrug. I'm just trying to be human. For a moment, silence passed between them. Heavy silence, but not unfriendly. Then, slowly, the Queen leaned closer. Her voice was barely a whisper, but Daniel heard it. Why are humans like this? Daniel looked at her, but he had no answer. All he knew was that the choice to stay, to protect her, was changing something. Something he couldn't yet understand. The battlefield had ended, but the real war, the war of hearts and minds, was only beginning. The Queen's curiosity, the ruins of the battlefield stretched wide and silent. Broken ships lay scattered across the blackened ground, their twisted frames glowing faintly in the morning sun. Smoke rose in thin lines, carrying the smell of burnt metal and ash. Daniel walked slowly, his wounded leg dragging with each step. Behind him, the alien Queen followed. She moved stiffly, her injuries slowing her, but her presence was still powerful. Even weakened, she carried herself like a ruler. They walked together, though not as allies. Not yet. The silence between them was heavy, filled with questions neither had spoken aloud. At last, the Queen broke it. Her voice was low, steady, but not cold. Human, why did you not leave me to die? Daniel glanced at her. Because I couldn't. Her glowing eyes narrowed. That is not an answer. He sighed, adjusting the strap of his pack. Maybe not to you, but for me, it's simple. You were alive. You needed help, so I helped. The Queen walked in silence for a while, her expression unreadable. But inside, her mind raced. She had lived her life by laws of power. To her people, weakness was death, mercy was foolishness, and enemies were meant to be crushed. Yet this human had chosen differently. It unsettled her. Later, when they stopped to rest in the shadow of a broken war machine, she sat across from him. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light as she watched him open a small ration pack. You risk yourself for me, she said suddenly. You treat my wounds, you share your food. And yet I am your enemy. Daniel shrugged. Maybe that's why it matters. She tilted her head. Explain. He looked at her, his tired face calm. Helping friends is easy. Helping enemies, that's the real test of who we are. The Queen stared at him, her lips tightening. She wanted to call him foolish. She wanted to laugh at his words, but she could not. Deep inside, something about them struck her. Her soldiers would never understand. Her people would call her weak if she admitted what she felt. But she could not stop thinking about it. Finally, she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Why are you so kind? Even to me? Daniel froze. He had heard that whisper once before when he freed her from the wreckage. Now she was asking again, this time with more weight. He met her glowing eyes and shook his head slowly. I don't know. Maybe it's just what makes us human. Her chest tightened at his words. Something about them felt dangerous, not because they were false, but because they were true. As the hours passed, they continued their slow journey through the ruins. Daniel fixed small things as they went, his soldiers' training never letting him ignore what was broken. When her weapon sparked and failed, he repaired it. When her armor strap tore, he mended it with scraps. The Queen watched each act with growing curiosity. He gained nothing by helping her. He had every reason to let her struggle. Yet he kept giving, kept fixing, kept protecting. Finally, she spoke again, this time sharper. Do all humans act this way? Or are you different? Daniel gave a faint smile. Most humans are like me. Some aren't, but enough are. That's why we survive. Her eyes narrowed. Survive? Against us? Against empires stronger than you? Yes, Daniel said firmly. Because we don't give up. Because we stand for each other. Because we don't forget kindness, even when it costs us. The Queen fell silent. His words echoed in her mind long after he finished speaking. She thought of her empire built on strength, ruled by fear. She thought of her warriors, who would abandon the weak without a second thought. And she wondered, for the first time in her life, if her people were wrong. That night, as they rested under the broken frame of a burned-out ship, the Queen could not sleep. She lay awake, watching the human soldier as he dozed lightly. His rifle in his lap. She whispered softly, so quietly he could not hear. Perhaps kindness is not weakness after all. The thought frightened her, but it also pulled at her heart. The return of danger. The ruins lay quiet, but Daniel's instincts told him it would not last. Battlefields never stayed empty for long. Sooner or later, hunters came searching for survivors, searching for trophies, searching to finish what war had started. The alien Queen felt it too. Her glowing eyes scanned the horizon as the wind shifted. She was weakened, her movements slow, but her senses were sharp. She could almost smell danger on the air. Human, she said, her voice firm again. They will come for me. Daniel adjusted his rifle. The barrel blackened from the last fight. Then they'll have to go through me first. She stared at him, disbelief flickering across her face. You would fight my own warriors? For me? Daniel nodded simply. I don't care whose warriors they are. If they come to kill someone I swore to protect, I'll fight. The Queen fell silent. She wanted to tell him he was mad. She wanted to call him weak. But instead, her chest tightened with something. Unfamiliar, something she refused to name. The first attack came at dusk. Shadows moved among the wreckage, silent at first. Then a sharp hiss cut the air, followed by a blast of green energy that struck the dirt near Daniel's feet. Down! Daniel shouted, pushing the Queen behind the remains of a broken wall. Figures appeared from the smoke. 3 Karath hunters, tall and armored, their weapons glowing. They were her soldiers, loyal to her empire, but they did not come to save her. They came to make sure no weakness remained. One of them stepped forward, his voice harsh. Queen, we were told you fell in battle. Your reign ends here. The Queen's eyes narrowed. You dare? Your injury is weakness. The hunter spat. The empire deserves strength. Daniel raised his rifle. His voice was sharp, cutting through the smoke. If you want her, you'll have to get through. Me first. The hunters laughed, a sound like grinding stone. A human soldier? You are nothing. But the laughter ended quickly when Daniel opened fire. His shots were precise, controlled, each one forcing the hunters back behind cover. He moved with speed born of desperation, his body aching, but his aim steady. The Queen watched him, shock filling her eyes. He was outnumbered, outgunned, yet he fought with no hesitation. Not for himself, but for her. The hunters spread out, trying to flank him. Daniel ducked behind broken armor plating, returning fire. Energy blasts ripped through the air, burning the ground where he had stood seconds before. The Queen's voice rang out. Human, fall back. You cannot win. Daniel shook his head, sweat dripping down his face. I don't need to win. I just need to keep you alive. The hunters pressed closer. One charged, swinging a blade of crackling energy. Daniel barely rolled aside, his rifle knocked from his grip. The hunter raised the blade again, ready to strike. Then the Queen moved. Despite her injuries, she lunged forward, grabbing a piece of broken steel from the ground. With a fierce cry, she struck the hunter across the chest. sending him stumbling. Daniel grabbed his sidearm and fired point blank, dropping the hunter. The other two roared in fury, closing in fast. Daniel's weapon was almost empty. His hands shook as he aimed. You can't fight them both. The queen hissed. Daniel smiled faintly, his voice ragged. Watch me. He fired again, forcing the hunters to spread apart. His shots weren't enough to kill them, but they slowed their advance. Then suddenly, his weapon clicked empty. The hunters grinned, raising their glowing blades. The queen stepped in front of him. Her body swayed with exhaustion, her wounds bleeding, but her eyes blazed with fire. If you want him, she snarled, you will go through me. The hunters hesitated. Never had they seen their queen defend a human. Confusion flickered in their glowing eyes. That moment was all Daniel needed. With a roar, he charged forward, tackling one hunter into the dirt. They struggled, fists and blades clashing. Daniel's body burned with pain, but he fought like a man with nothing left to lose. The queen grabbed the fallen hunter's weapon and drove it into the other attacker's chest. A burst of green light filled the air as the last of the hunters collapsed. Silence fell again. Daniel lay on the ground, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling in ragged gasps. The queen dropped the weapon, her body trembling. She turned to him slowly, her glowing eyes filled with something new. Not just respect, something deeper. You risked your life, she whispered. Not once, twice, against my own kind. For me. Daniel gave a tired smile. I told you, I don't leave people behind. The queen knelt beside him. Her hand hovered above his chest, uncertain, before finally resting there. Her voice was so soft, it was almost lost in the wind. Why are you so kind? Daniel's eyes met hers. This time, he answered, because that's how humans fight. With more than weapons, with heart. The queen felt the words sink deep into her, tearing at walls she had built her whole life. For the first time, she wondered if her empire's strength was nothing compared to what this human carried inside. For the first time, she was afraid, not of him, but of what he made her feel. The hidden truth of humanity. The battlefield was silent again, but not peaceful. The three hunters lay dead, their weapons glowing faintly before fading into the dust. Smoke curled from the yaw, wreckage, and the air smelled of metal and blood. Daniel leaned against the wall of a ruined transport, his body trembling. His arms were bruised, his face streaked with sweat, and his breathing came hard and heavy. Yet his eyes were steady, watching the horizon for more danger. Beside him, the alien queen sat with her back straight, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Her wounds still pained her, but she seemed to forget them. She was studying him as if he were a puzzle she had never solved. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but sharp. Human. Why? Why risk yourself for me? Twice now you could have let me die. Twice you chose not to. Why? Daniel gave a tired smile, though his face was pale. Because that's who I am. That's who we are. Her eyes narrowed. Your kind fights wars. Your kind burns planets. Do not speak to me of goodness. Daniel shook his head slowly. Yes, we fight. We bleed. We make mistakes. But when it matters most, we help. We protect. We stand for something greater than ourselves. That's why I helped you. The queen fell silent. His words struck her deeper than enemy fire ever had. She remembered the past. Long ago, during her rise to power, her fleet had destroyed a small colony. In the flames, she had seen something that never left her mind. A human crawling through rubble, his body broken, yet still dragging another alien, one of her own injured warriors, to safety. At the time, she had dismissed it as madness. Now, looking at Daniel, she realized it had not been madness at all. It had been humanity. The queen leaned closer, her voice softer. You speak of something strange, something I have never known. What is it? Daniel's eyes met hers. Kindness. The word hung heavy in the air. The queen's chest tightened. In her empire, kindness was weakness. Mercy was betrayal. Compassion was death. Yet here was a soldier, bleeding and broken, still speaking of it as if it were his greatest weapon. You believe kindness is strength? She asked, almost whispering. Daniel nodded. More than strength. Strength fades, fear breaks. But kindness, it changes people. It makes enemies into allies. It builds instead of destroys. That's why we survive. The queen's glowing eyes trembled for the first time. She wanted to argue, to call his words foolish. But deep inside, she knew they were true. She lowered her voice, speaking words no one from her empire had ever dared. Perhaps that is why humans are feared, not because of their weapons, not because of their armies, but because they carry something my people lost long ago. Daniel looked at her curiously. And what's that? Her voice cracked with something between awe and sorrow. The power to care. Silence followed. Even the wind seemed to pause. Daniel leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. His wounds ached, but he felt a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time, the queen's words carried not just authority, but honesty. The queen turned her gaze away, staring at the broken horizon. If my warriors saw me now, speaking to you like this, they would call me unfit to rule. Daniel smirked faintly. Maybe, or maybe they'd realize you're stronger than they thought. Her lips twitched, almost like a smile, but it faded quickly. She shook her head. No, they would never understand. Daniel leaned forward. His voice was quiet, but filled with conviction. Then maybe it's time they learn. The queen stared at him, her mind racing. Could she truly show weakness before her people? Could she admit that a human had taught her something no war, no conquest, had ever shown? She whispered again, her words trembling in the silence. Why are you so kind? Daniel answered softly this time, his eyes locked on hers. Because kindness is what makes us human. Without it, we'd be no different from the monsters we fight. The queen lowered her gaze. For the first time in her reign, she felt uncertain of everything she thought she knew. And yet, she also felt something else, something she had not felt in years. The unexpected bond. A sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the ruined battlefield. The smoke that once covered the sky was thinning, revealing faint stars above. For the first time since the battle began, the silence felt less like death and more like waiting. Daniel sat near the broken wall, cleaning his weapon. His hands were raw and blistered, but his movements were steady. Beside him, the alien queen leaned back against a pile of shattered metal, her glowing eyes fixed on him. She had been watching him for hours. Every move he made, every word he spoke, it all filled her with questions. She, a queen of power and conquest, could not understand why this human treated her not as an enemy, not as prey, but as someone worth saving. Finally, she broke the silence. Human, Daniel glanced at her. What is it? You are strange, she said, her voice slower than usual. I should hate you. I should kill you. Yet I do not, Daniel smirked faintly. I could say the same about you. The queen tilted her head. For a moment, her lips curved, almost like a smile, but it vanished quickly. You risked everything for me, she continued. My own people would call you a fool. Even my warriors would abandon me if I showed weakness. Yet you stand by me. Daniel set his weapon aside, his eyes meeting hers. Maybe that's the difference. Humans don't just stand with the strong. We stand with the ones who need it most. Her chest tightened at his words. She hated how much sense they made. As night fell, they found shelter in the remains of a transport cabin. The roof was cracked, but it shielded them from the cold winds. Daniel started a small fire from scraps, its soft glow casting light across their faces. For a long time they sat in silence, the fire crackling between them. Finally, the queen spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "Do you not fear me, human?" Daniel poked at the fire with a shard of metal. "I'd be lying if I said no. You're powerful, dangerous, but fear doesn't change what I see in front of me right now." Her glowing eyes narrowed. "And what do you see?" Daniel's voice was calm. Not a queen, not an enemy, just someone who needed help. The queen looked away, her throat tightening. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not her soldiers, not her rivals, not even those who claimed to admire her. They all saw power. This human saw something else. That night, sleep was uneasy. Daniel kept watch with his rifle, his body aching but his mind alert. At one point, the queen stirred, her voice soft in the darkness. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Daniel looked at her across the fading fire. "Because caring is what makes us human." Her chest ached at those words. She did not answer, but the whisper echoed in her mind until sleep finally claimed her. The next morning, their uneasy peace was broken. From the distance came the sound of marching boots, dozens of them. The queen's eyes widened. "My warriors, they are coming." Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle. "And what will they do if they find you with me?" Her silence was enough. When the soldiers appeared over the ridge, their armor gleaming and weapons raised, they froze at the sight before them. Their queen alive, but standing beside a human soldier. Gasps rippled through their ranks. One of the generals stepped forward, his voice booming. "My queen, what is this?" The queen's eyes narrowed. She could feel the stares of her people, their confusion, their judgment. If she spoke wrongly, she would lose everything. Daniel stood beside her, silent, ready to fight if he had to. But the queen raised a hand, stopping him. Her voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "This human saved my life. Twice. Without him, I would not stand before you now." The soldiers shifted uneasily. Some looked horrified, others suspicious. The general growled, "A human? Our enemy? Impossible." "Hope." But the queen's eyes burned. "It is the truth, and you will remember it. Strength alone does not rule. Even a human can carry a power greater than weapons." The crowd murmured, shaken by her words. Daniel stayed silent, his heart pounding. He had no idea what she would say next. The queen turned slightly, her glowing eyes meeting his. For the first time, her voice soft not for him alone, but for all to hear. "This human is not my enemy. He is my ally. And more than that, he is under my protection." The soldiers froze. Shock spread through the ranks like fire. Never had their queen spoken such words about a human. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He hadn't asked for this. He had only tried to help. But somehow, things were changing. The queen's eyes lingered on him, softer than before. And in that silence, both of them realized something neither could deny. Their bond was no longer just survival. It was becoming something far more dangerous and far more powerful. The queen's heart changes. The alien soldiers stood frozen in the ruins, their eyes wide as their queen's words echoed in the air. "A human is not my enemy. He is under my protection." It was something none of them had ever imagined hearing. The queen of the Kareth Empire, feared across the stars, had spoken in defense of a fragile human soldier. Daniel shifted uneasily. He had not asked for this. He had only tried to help, only followed the instinct that told him kindness was worth more than hate. Yet here he was, standing at the side of a queen, who now looked at him with something far deeper than gratitude. The silence broke when the General stepped forward again, his face twisted in disbelief. My queen, this cannot be. He is human. He is weak. He is your enemy. The queen raised her hand, silencing him instantly. Her glowing eyes burned with fire. He is stronger than you will ever understand. He saved me when I was nothing, but broken steel and blood. He gave when he owed nothing. He fought for me when even you would have walked away. Her soldiers lowered their heads, shamed by her words. Daniel felt her gaze shift to him again. This time, it was not the look of a ruler. It was the look of someone who had found something she never expected. She stepped closer, her tall frame casting a shadow over him. Her voice dropped lower, softer, but still carrying enough for her people to hear. When I lay beneath the wreckage, I expected death. But he freed me. When hunters came to finish me, he fought them. And when I asked him why, he gave me an answer my empire has forgotten. Daniel swallowed, his heart beating fast. He already knew what she meant, but hearing her say it made his chest tighten. Kindness, she said firmly. That is the hidden strength of humanity, and I will not deny it. A murmur rippled through the crowd of soldiers. Some whispered, in disbelief, others in awe. The idea was strange, dangerous, but they could not deny what they had seen with their own eyes. The queen turned fully toward her people, her voice thundering now. This human is not my prisoner. He is not my enemy. From this day forward, he stands as my chosen partner. Gasps erupted. Shock rolled across the ranks like thunder. Daniel's eyes widened. Partner? He whispered under his breath. His face flushing. The queen looked down at him, and for the first time, her expression softened into something almost human. Yes, you showed me what no soldier, no empire ever could, and I will not let you go. Daniel struggled to find words. He had never imagined this. He had wanted only to save a life, to do what was right. Yet now, his kindness had changed. Not just a battle, but an entire queen's heart. The general stepped forward again, his voice shaking. My queen, you cannot mean this. To take a human as your consort. The queen's eyes flashed, silencing him with a single look. I mean every word. You question my choice? Then you question your queen. The general bowed quickly, trembling with fear. None dared to speak against her again. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, still stunned. I don't know what to say. The queen leaned closer, her glowing eyes locking on his. Say nothing. You have already spoken with your actions. That is enough. The soldiers around them slowly lowered their weapons, their faces still filled with confusion, but also something new respect. For the first time, they looked at a human not as prey, not as weakness, but as someone their queen had chosen above all others. Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily. He thought of his fellow soldiers, of what they would say if they ever learned this. He thought of how impossible this all seemed. Yet when he looked into the queen's eyes, he realized something simple. He had followed his heart, and his heart had led him here. The queen lifted her chin proudly. From this day, you are more than a soldier, Daniel of Earth. You are my equal, my consort, my husband. Her final word echoed through the ruins. Heavy and undeniable. Daniel felt the weight of it sink into him. Husband to the alien queen. It sounded impossible. It sounded insane. But as he looked at her, this proud, fierce ruler who had whispered to him in weakness, who had seen in him something her people had long forgotten, he realized it was real. He gave a small, tired smile. Then I guess I'm the luckiest soldier alive. The queen's lips curved slightly, the faintest trace of a smile. No, you are more than that. You are proof that kindness can conquer even the hardest of hearts. The alien soldiers bowed low, their voices rising. In unison, for the first time, the human soldier was not seen as prey. He was seen as something greater, Dot. And in that moment, Daniel understood wars could break worlds. Weapons could burn cities. But kindness could change a queen. And sometimes, kindness could even rewrite destiny.